5 words.
Can I
That is
sit
all
with
it took
you?
to change 3 lives forever. 5 simple words spoken by a young woman who had lost everything. 5 words that would echo through time and transform strangers into family. But before those words were spoken, there was a morning, a Saturday morning in late March, and there was a city waking up to something it had almost forgotten existed: sunshine. Portland had been drowning in gray for months. The endless winter rains had turned the city into a watercolor painting left out in the storm. Everything blurred together. The buildings, the streets, the people walking with their heads down and their umbrellas up. But on this particular Saturday, something shifted. The clouds parted like curtains on a stage. Golden lights spilled across the wet streets, making them shimmer like rivers of honey. Steam rose from the pavement in lazy spirals. Birds that had been silent for weeks suddenly remembered how to sing. And everywhere people emerged from their homes like bears coming out of hibernation. They squinted at the sky with suspicion at first, then with wonder, then with something that looked almost like hope. The Corner Bean Cafe sat on a quiet street in the Alberta Arts District. It was the kind of place that had been there forever, the kind of place that smelled like freshly ground coffee and cinnamon rolls and memories. The wooden floors creaked in familiar places. The mismatched chairs had stories worn into their seats. The windows were always slightly fogged, creating a soft boundary between the chaos outside and the warmth within. On this Saturday morning, the Corner Bean was under siege. Every table was taken, every chair occupied. The line at the counter snaked past the pastry display and nearly out the door. Couples leaned close together over shared lattes. Students hunched over laptops with the desperate focus of approaching deadlines. Families with strollers and sippy cups and crumb-covered children filled every corner. The sunshine had brought them all here. After months of isolation, people craved connection. They craved community. They craved the simple pleasure of drinking coffee surrounded by other human beings. It was beautiful in its way. But for the young woman standing just inside the entrance, it was a disaster. Celine Walsh was 23 years old. She had blonde hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. Brown eyes that held too much sadness for someone so young. A face that might have been pretty if it was not so haunted. And she had one leg. The left one was gone below the knee. In its place was a prosthetic that she usually wore with confidence. But today the phantom pains had been bad. Today she was on crutches instead. Today every step was a small battle. She stood in the doorway of the Corner Bean, scanning the packed cafe with growing desperation. Her knuckles were white where they gripped the handles of her crutches. Her breath came in short, shallow bursts. She needed to be here, not wanted, needed, because today was her birthday. And this cafe, this crowded, noisy, impossible cafe, was the only place in the world where she might feel close to the family she had lost. 2 years ago, almost to the day, Celine Walsh had been part of a family, a real family, the kind you see in photographs and assume must be staged because no one is actually that happy. But they were. Her father, Franklin Walsh, had been a firefighter at Station 14 for 22 years. A big man with gentle hands and a laugh that could fill a room. He made terrible jokes at breakfast. He cried at commercials with dogs in them. He called Celine his little moon because her name meant goddess of the moon. Her mother, Diane, had been a pediatric nurse at Doernbecher Children's Hospital, a small woman with an enormous heart. She worked 12-hour shifts and still came home with enough love to make everyone feel like the center of her universe. She hummed while she cooked. She left notes in lunch bags. She believed that every problem could be solved with enough tea and conversation. And then there was Ivy. Celine's little sister had been 14 years old, a force of nature with wild curly hair and wilder dreams. Ivy wanted to be a veterinarian because she loved every animal she ever met. She brought home stray cats and injured birds. She cried over roadkill. She had the biggest heart of anyone Celine had ever known. Every Saturday morning, rain or shine, the Walsh family came to the Corner Bean. It was their tradition, their sacred time, the one morning each week when the outside world did not exist. Franklin always ordered black coffee and a blueberry muffin. Diane got a vanilla latte and whatever looked good in the pastry case. Ivy had strawberry waffles with extra syrup. Always extra syrup because she believed life was too short for a reasonable amount of syrup. And Celine had hot chocolate because even at 21, sitting with her family on Saturday mornings, she liked feeling like a kid again. They would sit at a table by the window. They would talk about everything and nothing. Franklin would tell his terrible jokes. Diane would groan but smile. Ivy would steal bites from everyone's plates. And for those few hours, everything was perfect. That was before. Before the gas leak that the landlord had ignored. Before the explosion that tore through their apartment building at 3 in the morning. Before Celine woke up in a hospital bed 3 days later to learn that her entire world had ended while she slept. The building had collapsed like a house of cards. Celine had been trapped under concrete and steel for almost 6 hours before the rescue team could reach her. Her left leg had been crushed beyond repair. The doctors had no choice but to amputate. She remembered waking up. She remembered the white ceiling tiles. She remembered the beeping of machines and the smell of antiseptic. She remembered asking for her mother. The silence that followed that question was the loudest sound she had ever heard. Franklin Walsh, Diane Walsh, Ivy Walsh, gone. All of them, gone in a single moment of fire and falling concrete. And Celine was left behind, broken, alone, with one leg and a grief so heavy it made breathing feel like drowning. That was 2 years ago. Selena had survived. That was the word the doctors used. The therapists, the well-meaning relatives who did not know what else to say. You survived. But surviving and living are not the same thing. For 2 years, Celine had been surviving. She had moved in with her aunt in Vancouver, Washington, just across the river from Portland. She had learned to walk with a prosthetic. She had rebuilt her freelance graphic design career from the ground up. She had gone through the motions of existing, but she had not been back to the corner bean. She could not. Every time she thought about it, the grief would rise up like a wave and pull her under. The memories were too sharp, too precious, too painful. Until today. Today was her 23rd birthday. The second birthday since the accident. The second birthday without her family singing to her off-key around a cake that Diane always burned slightly because she got too excited and opened the oven too early. The second birthday alone. Celine had woken up that morning in her small studio apartment and known with a certainty that surprised her that she needed to go back. She needed to sit in the cafe where her family had been happiest. She needed to feel close to them, even if they were gone, even if it destroyed her. So here she was, standing in the doorway of the corner bean, watching the crowd of strangers enjoy their Saturday morning, wondering if this had been a terrible mistake. She took a breath, then another. Then she started making her way through the cafe. The first table she approached was near the door. A young couple sat there leaning into each other with the easy intimacy of new love. Their coffee cups were empty, but they showed no signs of leaving. Celine cleared her throat softly. The couple looked up. "Excuse me, the cafe is completely full. Would you mind terribly if I shared your table? I would not take up much room." The woman's eyes flickered to Celine's crutches, to her missing leg. Something uncomfortable passed across her face. "We were actually hoping for some privacy," she said. "Sorry," she did not sound sorry. Celine nodded, trying to keep her expression neutral. "Of course, I understand. Sorry to bother you." She moved on. The second table was occupied by a man in his 40s. He had papers spread everywhere, a laptop open, 3 empty coffee cups pushed to one side. He was clearly working on something important. Celine approached anyway. She had no choice. Every other table was full, and she could feel her strength beginning to fail. The crutches were wearing her out. The phantom pains in her missing leg were getting worse. "Excuse me," she said. "I am so sorry to interrupt. The cafe is packed, and I was wondering—" The man did not even look up from his laptop. "I need the whole table," he said. "Deadline. But sorry, cannot help you." Celine stood there for a moment, absorbing the rejection. Then she nodded at the top of his head and moved away. She stopped in the middle of the cafe between the tables and the counter and looked around with growing despair. There was nowhere to sit. The one place in the world where she might feel close to her family, and she could not even find a chair. She thought about leaving. It would be easy. Just turn around and walk out. Go back to her empty apartment. Spend her birthday alone like she had spent every other day for the past 2 years. What difference would it make? But her feet would not move. She had come too far. She had worked too hard to get here. She had spent 2 years avoiding this place, and now that she was finally ready to face it, she could not just give up. So she stood there, in the middle of the crowded cafe, a young woman with one leg and no family and nowhere to sit on her birthday. And that was when she saw him. Garrett Shaw was 32 years old. He had the kind of face that looked honest, brown hair that was starting to show the first hints of gray at the temples, eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled, hands that were always slightly stained with paint no matter how hard he scrubbed them. He was a middle school art teacher at Ockley Green Academy. It was a chaotic job. Hormones and creativity and drama colliding daily in a small classroom full of easels and half-finished projects. But he loved it. He loved watching kids discover that they could make something beautiful out of nothing. He was also a single father. His daughter Wren sat across from him at the corner table by the window. She was 6 years old with her mother's auburn hair and her father's honest eyes. She was in the middle of a very important story about something that had happened at school, and she was telling it with the full dramatic commitment of a Broadway actress. And then she said, gesturing wildly with both hands, Jonah's hamster got out of the cage during show and tell, and it ran under Mrs. Feldman's desk. And she screamed so loud, like a monster was coming. But it was just Cheeto. That is the hamster's name. Cheeto, because he is orange. Garrett smiled at his daughter, but his attention had wandered. He had noticed the young woman on crutches the moment she walked in. He had watched her navigate through the crowded cafe with a kind of determined grace. He had seen her approach the couple near the door. He had seen the way they dismissed her. Then he had watched her try the man with the laptop. Same result. Now she was standing in the middle of the cafe looking around with an expression that made Garrett's chest tighten. He knew that expression. He had worn it himself 3 years ago when his marriage fell apart and he suddenly found himself alone with a toddler and no idea how to move forward. It was the look of someone who was about to give up. Daddy Wren said, her voice slightly annoyed. Are you even listening? Garrett pulled his attention back to his daughter. Of course, sweetheart. The hamster escaped. That was like 5 minutes ago, Wren said with the exaggerated exasperation of a 6-year-old. Now I am telling you about what happened after. When Cheeto ran into Emma's backpack but Garrett's eyes had drifted again. The young woman was still standing there. Her shoulders had slumped. Her head was bowed. She was biting her lip, and even from across the cafe, Garrett could tell she was fighting back tears. She was going to leave. He could see it in the way she shifted her weight on her crutches, in the way she took a breath that looked like surrender. Hold that thought, sweetheart, Garrett said to Wren. Then he raised his hand and waved. Celine almost did not see him. She was too busy trying to convince herself to leave. Too busy fighting the tears that threatened to spill down her cheeks. Too busy wondering why she had ever thought this was a good idea. Then she saw the movement. A hand raised. A gentle wave. A man at a corner table by the window. Next to him, a little girl with auburn hair, watching Celine with open curiosity. The man was pointing at the empty chair across from him. He was mouthing something that looked like, please sit. Celine blinked. She thought she must be imagining it. But the man waved again, more insistent this time, and he smiled, a warm, genuine smile that reached all the way to his eyes. Celine felt something shift in her chest. Something that had been frozen for 2 years began very slowly to thaw. She made her way toward the corner table. When she reached them, the man stood up immediately. He pulled out the empty chair and gestured for her to sit. Please, he said, join us. His voice was kind, not pitying, not uncomfortable, just kind. Celine felt the tears she had been fighting press harder against her eyes. She blinked them back. Thank you, she said softly. Thank you so much. I know this is strange. I asked those other tables first, but you do not have to explain. The man said, we are happy to share. He extended his hand. I am Garrett, and this is my daughter, Wren. The little girl waved enthusiastically. Hi, we come here every Saturday. It is our special tradition. I always get hot chocolate with extra whipped cream, and Daddy gets boring black coffee. She wrinkled her nose at Garrett's mug. Do you like hot chocolate? Celine could not help but smile. Despite everything, despite the grief and the loneliness and the ache in her chest, she smiled. I love hot chocolate, she said. That sounds perfect for today. She settled into the chair and propped her crutches against the wall. The relief of sitting down was almost overwhelming. I am Celine, she said, and I really cannot thank you enough. I was starting to think I would have to leave, and her voice caught. I really could not bear to leave without being here for a while. Garrett's expression softened. He seemed to understand that there was more to her words than she was saying. Well, he said gently, you are here now. That is what matters. A server appeared and Celine ordered coffee and a croissant. As the server left, Ren launched into conversation with the boundless energy of childhood. I am in first grade, she announced. My teacher is Mrs. Feldman, and she has a hamster named Cheeto because he is orange and fluffy. I already told you about when he escaped during show and tell. It was very exciting. Do you have any pets? Celine shook her head. Not right now, but I used to have a cat named Luna. She was gray with white paws. Luna means moon in Spanish, Ren said importantly. My friend Maya told me that. Her family speaks Spanish at home. It does, Celine said, and something warm flickered in her chest. That is exactly why I named her that. They talked for 15 minutes. Celine learned that Ren's favorite color was green like leaves, that she wanted to be an astronaut, or a chef, or maybe someone who trains dolphins. She had not decided yet. That her best friend was named Harper, and Harper had a dog named Meatball, which was a very funny name for a dog. Garrett did not say much. He mostly listened, watching Celine with quiet attention. But when he did speak, his words were thoughtful, measured, kind. Celine found herself relaxing in a way she had not relaxed in years. There was something about this man and his daughter, something safe, something warm, like sitting by a fire after being lost in the cold. Then Ren asked the question that changed everything. Why did you need to be here today? You said it was very important, like very, very important. Celine set down her coffee cup. She looked at Garrett, then at Ren. The little girl was watching her with witty, curious eyes. This was the moment she could deflect, change the subject, keep her grief locked away where no one could see it. But something about these strangers made her want to tell the truth. Today is my birthday, she said softly. Ren's eyes went huge. Your birthday today. Today, I am 23. And before Celine could say another word, before she could prepare herself, before she could do anything at all, Ren Shaw began to sing. Happy birthday to you. Her voice was clear and slightly off-key and absolutely devastatingly sincere. Happy birthday to you. Garrett joined in immediately, his deeper voice blending with his daughter's soprano, creating a harmony that was imperfect and beautiful. Happy birthday, dear Celine. A woman at the next table looked over. She smiled and added her voice. An older couple across the cafe heard the song and joined in for the final line. Happy birthday to you. The words washed over Celine like warm water. She had not heard anyone sing happy birthday to her since the accident. She had not had anyone to sing it. Her aunt had sent a card last year. A few friends had texted, but no one had actually sung. No one had made her feel celebrated. No one had made her feel seen. Until now. The tears she had been fighting all morning finally won. They spilled down her cheeks in hot, silent streams. But she was smiling through them, smiling so hard it almost hurt. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you both. That was the most beautiful thing anyone has done for me in a very long time. Everyone needs birthday songs, Ren declared with the conviction of absolute truth. Then her face lit up with another idea. Daddy, we need to get her a birthday cake. You cannot have a birthday without cake. Oh no. Celine started to protest. Please, you have already been so kind. But Garrett was already standing. They make really good cakes here, he said. Would that be okay? It is your birthday. You should definitely have cake. Celine looked at him through her tears, at this stranger who had waved her over, who had given her a seat when no one else would, who was now offering to buy her a birthday cake. She tried to find the words to decline, to say she did not deserve this kindness, to explain that she was just a broken girl who had stumbled into their Saturday morning. But what came out instead was, okay. Yes, thank you. Garrett smiled, and in that smile Celine saw something she had not seen in 2 years. Hope. Garrett returned from the counter carrying a small chocolate cake with vanilla buttercream frosting. A single candle stood in the center, its flame dancing gently. He set it in front of Celine, and suddenly the corner of the cafe fell quiet. People at nearby tables noticed what was happening. Someone started singing again, softly at first, then louder as others joined in. By the time they reached the final note, their entire section of the corner bean had become a chorus. Make a wish, Ren whispered excitedly. Celine closed her eyes. What do you wish for when you have lost everything? What do you ask for when the only thing you want is the one thing you can never have? She thought about her father's laugh, her mother's hugs, Ivy's wild curly hair and wilder dreams. She thought about Saturday mornings at this very cafe, the way her family had filled the space with love, so thick you could almost touch it. She thought about how empty her life had become, how silent, how gray. And then for the first time in 2 years, she wished for something new. She wished for a reason to keep going. She blew out the candle. A ripple of applause spread through the cafe. Strangers clapping for a stranger, celebrating a birthday they knew nothing about. Celine opened her eyes and found both Garrett and Ren watching her with identical expressions of warmth. What did you wish for? Ren asked. You are not supposed to tell, Garrett reminded his daughter gently. Or it will not come true. Ren considered this very seriously. Okay, but I bet it was a good wish. It was, Celine said softly. It really was. They ate cake together. Ren took charge of distribution with the authority of a 6-year-old who had strong opinions about portion sizes. Celine got the first piece and the biggest piece because she was the birthday girl, and that was the rule. As they ate, something shifted in the atmosphere. The sugar, the unexpected kindness, the warmth of connection after years of isolation. Something inside Celine cracked open. This cafe, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. She was staring down at her plate, unable to meet their eyes. This was my family's place, our Saturday morning tradition. Exactly like yours. Garrett set down his fork. Ren stopped eating, her small face suddenly serious. Me, my little sister Ivy, and our parents. We lived a few blocks from here, in an apartment above a bookstore on Alberta Street. Celine took a breath, then another. 2 years ago, there was a gas leak in our building. The landlord had been warned multiple times. He kept saying he would fix it next month. Always next month, her voice cracked. The explosion happened at 3 in the morning. I woke up 3 days later in a hospital. The building had collapsed. I was trapped for almost 6 hours. They had to amputate my leg. Ren's eyes were wide and wet with tears. My parents and Ivy, Celine continued, her voice shattering completely. They did not make it out. They died in the collapse. The words hung in the air like smoke. Ivy was only 14. She wanted to be a veterinarian because she loved every animal she ever met. She had the biggest heart of anyone I have ever known. Celine was crying openly now, and my parents spent their lives saving other people. My dad ran into burning buildings, my mom saved sick children, but they could not save themselves. Before Garrett could respond, Ren slipped silently out of her chair. The little girl walked around the table with a solemnity that seemed far too old for her 6 years. She stood beside Celine's chair and looked up at her with eyes that held no judgment. No discomfort, only pure uncomplicated compassion. Then she wrapped her small arms around Celine and hugged her as tightly as she could. I am so sorry your family died, Ren said softly. Her voice was steady despite the tears running down her own cheeks. That is the saddest thing I ever heard. She squeezed tighter. But you are not alone right now. We are here with you. Celine broke. She pulled Ren closer and sobbed into her auburn hair. All the grief she had been carrying for 2 years, all the loneliness, all the silent screaming into the void. It all came pouring out in the arms of a 6-year-old stranger who understood something that most adults never grasp. Sometimes people just need to be held. Garrett came around the table too. He placed a comforting hand on Celine's shoulder. Not saying anything, not needing to, just being there. Present, solid, real. They stayed like that for a long time. 3 people who had been strangers less than an hour ago, now connected by birthday cake and unexpected kindness and the shared understanding that life is fragile and precious and sometimes unbearably hard. When Celine finally composed herself, she looked at them both with red-rimmed eyes. I am so sorry, she said, wiping her face with a napkin. I did not mean to fall apart like that. You do not apologize, Garrett said firmly. Not for grief, not ever. His voice left no room for argument. Celine took a shaky breath. I live with my aunt now, up in Vancouver, Washington. She took me in after I got out of rehab for my leg. But it does not feel like home. Nothing feels like home anymore. She looked around the cafe. Her gaze landed on different tables, different corners, places where memories lived. Today is my birthday, And all I wanted was to come back here, to this cafe, to feel close to them again. This was where we were happiest. She looked back at Garrett and fresh tears welled in her eyes. But when I got here and saw how crowded it was, I almost left. And then you waved me over. You sang to me. You bought me cake. You made me feel like I mattered. You do matter, Ren said with absolute certainty. She was back in her own chair now, but her hand was still reaching across the table holding Celine's fingers. You matter a lot, and you are not alone anymore. She looked at her father for confirmation. Right, Daddy, Garrett smiled at his daughter. At her pure heart. She is right, Garrett said. You do matter, and you do not have to be alone today. He paused, considering his next words carefully. We were planning to go to Laurelhurst Park this afternoon. Nothing fancy, just our usual Saturday. Ren plays on the swings while I pretend to read a book but actually watch her the whole time. Ren giggled. You do not pretend. You just watch me like a weirdo. I watch you because I love you, Garrett said. Then he looked back at Celine. You are welcome to join us, if you would like. Celine stared at him. This man who had shown her more kindness in one morning than she had experienced in 2 years. Are you sure, she asked? I do not want to intrude on your time together. You are not intruding, Garrett said. And Ren added, please come. It would be so fun. I can show you how high I can swing. I can swing very high, like almost to the sky. Celine looked at them both, at the warmth in their eyes, at the simple, uncomplicated offer of companionship. She thought about her empty apartment in Vancouver, about the silence that waited for her there. Then she thought about sunlight and swings and the sound of a little girl's laughter. I would love that, she said. Thank you. Laurelhurst Park was beautiful in the afternoon light. The trees were just starting to bud, the first hints of spring green pushing through the winter brown. The pond sparkled under the sun. Ducks paddled in lazy circles. Ren ran ahead toward the playground, her auburn hair flying behind her like a flag. Last one to the swings is a rotten egg, she shouted over her shoulder. I think that means we are both rotten eggs, Garrett said to Celine with a smile. I have been called worse. They found a bench with a good view of the playground and sat down together. Close enough to talk, far enough apart to be proper. For a while, neither of them spoke. They just watched Ren pump her legs on the swing, going higher and higher, shouting, look at me, at regular intervals. Then Garrett broke the silence. How long have you been doing this alone? Celine did not pretend to misunderstand. 2 years. Since the accident. Since I lost them. She watched Ren soar toward the sky. My aunt has been wonderful. She took me in, helped me through the rehab, never made me feel like a burden. But she has her own life, her own grief. My mom was her sister. I am sorry, Garrett said. Me too. They were quiet again, but it was not an uncomfortable silence. It was the kind of silence that happens when two people are sharing something without needing words. What about you, Celine asked eventually. How long have you been a single dad? 3 years, Garrett said. Since the divorce was finalized. Ren was 3. I am sorry. Do not be. Garrett's voice was matter-of-fact, not bitter. It was the right decision. Cordelia, my ex-wife, she is a good person, a good mother. We just were not good together. What happened? Garrett leaned back on the bench, his eyes still on his daughter. Cordelia and I met in college. We were 22 when we got married. Young, idealistic, convinced that love would conquer all. He paused. She is an artist, a real one. Talented, passionate, spontaneous. She wanted adventure, last-minute road trips, surprise concerts, living life at full volume. And you, Celine asked? I wanted Saturday mornings at the same cafe. Sunday dinners with the same menu. A life with rhythms and routines. Stability. He shrugged. Neither of us was wrong. We just wanted different things. And when Ren came along, those differences got harder to ignore. We tried for 3 years. But trying to be someone you are not, it is exhausting. Celine nodded slowly. That sounds harder than if one of you had done something wrong. At least then you would have someone to blame. Exactly, Garrett said, and there was surprise in his voice. That is exactly what it was like. No villain, no betrayal, just the slow, sad realization that love is not always enough. They watched Ren jump off the swing and run toward the monkey bars. Cordelia lives in Seattle now, Garrett continued. She is a curator at an art gallery up there. She comes down twice a month, calls every week. The divorce was amicable. That is good, Celine said. For Ren, that is what we keep telling ourselves. Garrett smiled, but there was an edge of sadness in it. She seems okay, but sometimes I catch her looking at other families. And I wonder if okay is really enough. Celine watched Ren climbing fearlessly across the monkey bars. She seems like an amazing kid. She is, Garrett said, and his voice was full of love. She is the best thing that ever happened to me. As the afternoon wore on, they discovered more common ground. They both loved bookstores with creaky wooden floors, coffee shops with mismatched furniture, the smell of Portland after rain. They both preferred indie films to blockbusters, libraries to movie theaters, cooking at home to eating out. Celine learned that Garrett was an art teacher at Ockley Green, that he specialized in helping kids discover that everyone could make art. Garrett learned that Celine was a freelance graphic designer, that she had rebuilt her entire career from her aunt's spare bedroom. They talked about grief and healing and the strange guilt of laughing again after loss. By the time the sun started to sink toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Celine realized something remarkable. She had not thought about leaving. Not once all afternoon. She had not wanted to escape back to her silent apartment. She had wanted to stay. They walked back to the parking lot together as the streetlights flickered on. Ren was tired now, the sugar crash from the birthday cake finally catching up with her. She held her father's hand and trudged along with the slow, determined steps of a child fighting sleep. When they reached Celine's car, they stopped. "Thank you," Celine said. The words felt inadequate, but she did not have better ones. For everything, for the table, for the cake, for the park, for today. She looked at Garrett with eyes that were still red from crying, but clearer now, lighter. "You turned what I thought would be the loneliest day of my life into something beautiful. I will never forget this." Garrett held her gaze. "Same place next Saturday?" he asked. The question hung in the air, simple on the surface. But underneath, they both knew it was something more. An invitation, an opening, a door that could lead somewhere neither of them expected. Celine felt her heart do something it had not done in 2 years. It hoped. "I would love that," she said. Ren, half asleep, tugged on her father's sleeve. "Miss Celine is coming back if she wants to," Garrett said. Celine crouched down to Ren's level. "I want to," she said. "I really do. Is that okay with you?" Ren's tired face split into a smile. "That is very okay. You are my friend now. And friends come to Saturday coffee. That is the rule." Celine laughed. It was the first real laugh she had laughed in 2 years. Well, she said, "I would not want to break the rule." That night, Celine sat in her apartment in Vancouver, but it did not feel as empty as before. She looked at the photos of her family on her dresser. Franklin with his terrible jokes, Diane with her enormous heart, Ivy with her wild dreams. "I met someone today," she said softly to the photographs. Two someones, actually. A dad and his little girl. They sang me happy birthday. They bought me cake. They took me to the park. She touched Ivy's face in the photograph. "I miss you," she whispered. "I miss you every second of every day, and I do not think that will ever stop. But today, for a few hours, I did not feel alone. For a few hours, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could learn to live again." Her phone buzzed. A text from Garrett. "Thank you for today. Ren has not stopped talking about you. She hopes your birthday wish comes true." Whatever it was. Celine smiled through fresh tears. She typed back, "Tell her thank you, and tell her I think maybe it already is." She set down her phone and looked out the window at the Portland skyline across the river. The lights twinkled in the darkness. The world kept turning. And for the first time in 2 years, Celine Walsh felt like maybe she wanted to keep turning with it. 4 months. That is how long it takes to build a life you never expected. 4 months of Saturday mornings and weekday evenings. 4 months of laughter and healing and small moments that add up to something bigger than anyone planned. 4 months to fall in love with someone without meaning to. And 4 months to become too afraid to say it. The text started the night of Celine's birthday and never stopped. At first they were polite, careful. The kind of messages strangers send when they are trying to figure out if a connection is real or just a beautiful accident. "Thank you again for today. I hope you got home safe." "I did. Thank you for everything. Ren is wonderful. She thinks you are pretty great too. She asked if you would come back next Saturday. I would love to. Same time, same table. It is tradition now, but as the weeks passed, the texts changed. They grew longer, more frequent, more personal. Garrett would send photos of Ren's artwork from school. Celine would respond with feedback, pointing out how Ren's use of color was becoming more confident. Celine would share screenshots of client designs she was working on, asking for Garrett's opinion. He would give thoughtful critiques that made her work better. They texted about movies they wanted to see and books they were reading, about dreams they had forgotten and fears they had never spoken aloud, about the weather and the way the light hit the river at sunset. They texted about everything and nothing, and somewhere in all those messages, a friendship became something more. Neither of them said it out loud, but they both knew. The second Saturday, Celine arrived at the corner bean before Garrett and Ren. She stood outside for a moment, looking through the foggy window at the crowded interior. Her heart was beating faster than it should have been. Her palms were sweating around the handles of her crutches. What if last week was a fluke? What if they had been kind to her out of pity and now regretted it? What if she walked in and they pretended not to see her? But then the door swung open and Ren came bursting out like a small hurricane. "Miss Celine, you came back. I knew you would come back. I told Daddy you would definitely come back because we are friends now." She grabbed Celine's hand and pulled her toward the entrance. "Come on. Daddy already got our table. The same one as last time. He said we have to sit at the same table every Saturday because that is our spot now." Celine let herself be dragged inside. Garrett was standing by the corner table waving. He was smiling. Not the polite smile of an acquaintance. The warm smile of someone who was genuinely happy to see her. And just like that, all of Celine's fears evaporated. By the fourth Saturday, they had established a rhythm. Celine would arrive first and order coffees for herself and Garrett. Hot chocolate with extra whipped cream for Ren. The baristas had learned their order by heart. Then Garrett and Ren would burst through the door, usually mid-conversation about something that had happened during the week. Ren would have a story to tell, something urgent and dramatic involving classmates or hamsters, or both. They would talk and laugh and share pastries. Then, weather permitting, they would go to the park, or the bookstore, or the waterfront, or wherever the day took them. It became the highlight of Celine's week. It became the thing she looked forward to when the loneliness got too heavy, when the grief pressed down on her chest like concrete. When she woke up at 3 in the morning gasping from nightmares about fire and falling buildings, she would remind herself that Saturday was coming, and somehow that was enough to keep her going. By the 8th week, the Saturday tradition had expanded. It started small, a Tuesday evening when Garrett texted that he was grading papers and going slowly insane. Celine had offered to bring dinner. Just takeout, nothing fancy, a mercy mission for a drowning teacher. She showed up at his apartment with Thai food and found Ren still awake, bouncing with excitement at the unexpected visitor. They ate pad thai on the living room floor while Ren showed Celine every single toy she owned, which was a lot of toys. And each one had a name and a backstory that Celine was required to memorize. It was chaotic and loud and wonderful. When Celine finally left hours later than she had planned, she realized something. She had not thought about her grief once. For an entire evening, she had just been present, happy, normal. It felt like a miracle. The Tuesday dinners became a regular thing, then the Thursday movie nights, then the occasional Sunday afternoon when Garrett needed help with Ren's school projects. Their lives began to weave together in ways that felt natural and inevitable. Celine learned that Garrett graded papers better with instrumental jazz playing in the background, that he was a terrible cook but tried anyway, that he talked to his plants like they were people. Garrett learned that Celine worked best late at night when the world was quiet, that she sang to herself when she was concentrating, that she still talked to her family's photographs every night before bed. They learned each other's rhythms, each other's silences, each other's scars. And somewhere in all that learning, Celine started to feel something she had not felt in 2 years. Home. In early May, 2 months after the birthday that changed everything, Celine made a decision. "I am moving to Portland," she told Garrett over coffee at the corner bean. Ren was at the counter carefully selecting a pastry. Garrett looked up from his cup. His expression was hard to read. "Really, my aunt is supportive. She knows I need to rebuild my life. And living away from the one place that feels like home does not make sense anymore." Celine paused suddenly, nervous. "There is a studio apartment available, 3 blocks from here. It is small, but the light is good." She was rambling. She knew she was rambling, but she could not stop. I mean, if you think that is okay, if it is not weird, if Celine, Garrett's voice cut through her spiral. She looked at him. He was smiling. I think that is great, he said. I think that is really, really great. Something warm bloomed in Celine's chest. Ren came bouncing back to the table with the chocolate croissant. What is great? I want to know what is great. Miss Celine is moving to Portland. She is going to live nearby. Ren's eyes went huge. Really, like we could see each other all the time? Well, maybe not all the time, Celine said, laughing, but definitely more than now. This is the best news ever. Ren launched herself at Celine, wrapping her small arms around her neck in a fierce hug. Over the little girl's shoulder, Celine met Garrett's eyes. He was still smiling. But there was something else in his expression now. Something deeper. Something that made Celine's heart beat faster. She told herself she was imagining it. She was not imagining it. Moving day came on a Saturday in late May. Garrett recruited two of his teacher friends, Drew and Michelle. They showed up with a pickup truck and matching enthusiasm. The move itself was small. Celine did not have much. Clothes, books, her drafting table and computer. A box of photographs she could not bear to leave behind. Everything fit in one truckload, but somehow the process took all day. There was furniture to assemble, pictures to hang, debates about where the couch should go that turned into an impromptu dinner party on Celine's new living room floor. Ren fell asleep on a pile of moving blankets around 8 o'clock. By 9, Drew and Michelle had gone home. The apartment was quiet. Garrett stood in the doorway looking around at the space that was now Celine's home. You did it, he said. We did it, Celine corrected. I could not have done this without you. Garrett smiled. That is what friends are for. Friends. The word hung in the air between them. Celine wanted to say something. She wanted to tell him that friends did not look at each other the way he was looking at her right now. But she did not say any of that. Instead, she said, thank you for everything. Garrett picked up his sleeping daughter, cradling her against his chest. Welcome home, Celine, he said softly. Then he was gone, and Celine was alone in her new apartment. But for the first time in 2 years, alone did not feel lonely. The summer passed in a golden blur. June brought long evenings at Laurelhurst Park, watching Ren chase fireflies. July brought a trip to the coast, all three of them building sandcastles. August brought county fairs and cotton candy and a photo booth strip that Celine taped to her bathroom mirror. In the photo, they looked like a family. Celine tried not to think about that too hard, but late at night when she was alone with her thoughts, she could not help it. She was falling in love with Garrett Shaw. Maybe she had been falling since the moment he waved her over to his table. Maybe it had been inevitable from that first hello. But now, 4 months in, there was no denying it anymore. She loved the way he listened, really listened with his whole attention. She loved the way he was with Ren, patient and playful and endlessly devoted. She loved his laugh, his paint-stained hands, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. She loved him, and she had no idea what to do about it. Because here was the thing Celine could not escape. She was broken. That was how she saw herself, no matter how much therapy she did or how many good days she strung together. Deep down, she believed she was damaged goods. She had lost her entire family. She had lost her leg. She had spent 2 years barely surviving. What could she possibly offer a man like Garrett? He was whole, stable, good. He had a beautiful daughter and a career he loved. And she was a ghost trying to learn how to be human again. She was 9 years younger than him. She was scarred inside and out. She was still waking up with nightmares, still talking to photographs, still crying in the shower when the grief got too heavy. What right did she have to love him? So she kept her feelings locked away. She smiled and laughed and pretended everything was fine. And she tried not to notice the way Garrett sometimes looked at her, like she was something precious, like she was something he wanted to keep. She told herself she was imagining it. She was not imagining it. On a Tuesday evening in early August, everything changed. Celine was at Garrett's apartment helping Ren with a craft project at the kitchen table. Glitter glue and construction paper everywhere. Garrett was in the living room grading papers with his phone pressed to his ear. Celine was not trying to eavesdrop, but the apartment was small and his voice carried. Really, that is great news, Cordelia. Congratulations. A pause. The Portland Art Museum. That is huge. You must be thrilled. Another pause. Longer this time. Moving back here to Portland, Celine's hands stilled on the craft project. Beside her, Ren was oblivious, focused intently on gluing a sequin to a paper butterfly. No, no. That would be good for Ren. She would love to see you more often. Something in Garrett's voice had shifted. He sounded careful now. Guarded? We can talk about it when you get here. The logistics, custody adjustments. Another pause. That is a lot to think about. Can we talk later? Ren is here? He hung up. For a moment there was silence. Then Garrett appeared in the kitchen doorway. His expression was strange, unsettled. Is everything okay? Celine asked. Yeah, that was Cordelia. She got a job offer at the Portland Art Museum. She is moving back to the city. Celine absorbed this information. That is great. Ren will be happy. Yeah. There is something else, is there not? Garrett met her eyes. She wants to talk about us. About trying again. The words hit Celine like a physical blow. Trying again. She mentioned it as a possibility. She has been doing therapy, self-reflection. She thinks maybe we gave up too quickly. Oh, it was all Celine could manage. Her throat had closed up. I told her we would talk about it later, Garrett said. When Ren is not around. That makes sense. Garrett was still watching her, like he was waiting for her to say something. But what could she say? She looked down at the craft project. We should probably finish this, she said, before the glue dries. Garrett stood in the doorway for a moment longer. Then he nodded and went back to grading papers. And Celine sat at the kitchen table with the little girl she loved, feeling her heart quietly shatter. Later that night, after Celine had gone home, Ren processed the news. Mommy is moving here to Portland. Yes, sweetheart. She got a new job. Ren's face exploded with joy. That means I can see her all the time. That is the plan. And maybe, Ren said, her voice rising with excitement, maybe if Mommy is here, you and Mommy could be together again. Like a real family. Like Harper's parents. Garrett felt his stomach drop. Sweetheart, it is not that simple. But it could be, Ren insisted. If Mommy is here and you are here, you could fall back in love. That happens in movies all the time. And then we would be a real family, and I would not have to go back and forth. Her eyes were shining with hope. I pray about it, she confessed. Every night, I pray that you and Mommy will get back together. Garrett did not know what to say. He pulled his daughter into his arms and held her tight. And later, alone in his room, he stared at the ceiling and wondered what the right thing to do was. The following Saturday, at the corner being, Garrett was distracted. Celine noticed immediately. He was quieter than usual. His coffee sat untouched. Ren had gone to examine the pastry case. Hey, Celine said gently. What is going on? Garrett sighed. Cordelia called again. She is definitely moving back. Next month. Is there something else? Garrett hesitated. She wants to talk about trying again. She thinks Ren needs both her parents under one roof. And what do you think? Garrett finally looked at her. Really looked at her. I do not know. I know what Ren wants. What does Ren want? Us back together? A complete family. Both parents at the dinner table every night. Celine nodded slowly. She forced her voice to remain steady. That makes sense. She is 6. That is what 6-year-olds want. What about you? Garrett asked. What do you think I should do? This was the moment. Celine knew it. This was when she was supposed to say something, to tell him how she felt, to fight for what they had been building together. But how could she? How could she ask him to choose her over his daughter's happiness? I think Celine said carefully that you should do what is best for Ren. She should be your priority. Something flickered across Garrett's face. Right, he said. Of course. Ren is what matters. Ren came bouncing back to the table with a cinnamon roll. The moment was gone, but something had shifted between them. Later that afternoon, while Garrett was taking a phone call, Ren sat with Celine on a park bench. Miss Celine, can I tell you a secret? Of course. Ren looked around as if checking for spies. Mommy is moving to Portland, and I told Daddy that maybe they could fall back in love. Then we would be a family. Celine felt her heart crack. Is that what you want? Ren nodded vigorously. I pray about it every night, like Harper's family, like normal families. She looked up at Celine with eyes full of hope. Do you think it could happen? Celine could not breathe. She looked at this little girl she had grown to love, and she realized something with devastating clarity. She was standing in the way. As long as she was in the picture, Garrett would be confused, divided, torn between old obligations and new feelings. But if she stepped aside, maybe Ren could have what she wanted. I think Celine said softly that anything is possible. If your mommy and daddy both want it, Ren's face lit up. Really, your daddy loves you more than anything. He will do whatever it takes to make you happy. Ren threw her arms around Celine's neck. Thank you, Miss Celine. You are the best friend ever. Celine hugged her back, memorizing the feel of those small arms. Because she had already made her decision. She was going to let them go. The withdrawal started slowly. The first week, Celine texted less, blamed a big client project, said she needed to focus. Garrett understood. Of course he understood. The second week, she skipped Saturday coffee, said she was not feeling well. Rain check. Garrett sent soup. She texted a thank you but did not invite him over. The third week, she had to drive to Vancouver to help her aunt with something. She was vague about the details. By the fourth week, the pattern was clear. Celine was pulling away, and Garrett did not know why. He tried calling. She let it go to voicemail. He tried texting. Her responses were short and distant. Did I do something wrong? Please talk to me. I miss you. Her response came hours later. I just think I have been imposing too much on your time with Ren. You two need your space, especially with everything changing. Garrett stared at the message, completely baffled. Imposing? She had never been an imposition. She was part of their family now. She was woven into the fabric of their daily lives. How could she not see that? On the third Saturday without Celine, Ren looked around the corner bean with confused, wounded eyes. Where is Miss Celine? Why does she not come anymore? She is just busy, sweetheart. But she was never too busy before. Ren's lower lip trembled. Did we do something to make her mad? Does she not like us anymore? No, baby. She likes us. She is just going through some things. I miss her, Daddy. She is my friend. Friends are not supposed to disappear. Garrett pulled his daughter close. I miss her too, sweetheart. I miss her too. That night, after putting Ren to bed, Garrett sat on his couch and tried to make sense of everything. Celine's withdrawal had started right after he mentioned Cordelia wanting to try again. Right after Ren told her about praying for her parents to reunite. Garrett connected the dots with sudden, painful clarity. Celine thought she was standing in the way. She thought that by stepping aside, she was giving Ren what she wanted. She was sacrificing her own happiness because she believed it was the right thing to do. And she was completely, absolutely, heartbreakingly wrong. Garrett grabbed his keys. Portland rain had returned with a vengeance. It came down in sheets, turning the streets into rivers. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Lightning flickered across the sky. Garrett stood outside Celine's apartment building, soaking wet. He had not thought to bring an umbrella. He had not thought about anything except getting here. He buzzed her apartment. No response. He buzzed again. Still nothing. But he could see a light in her window. He knew she was home. He pulled out his phone and called her. Celine, he said into the phone, looking up at her window through the rain. I know you are home. I can see your light. Please let me in. We need to talk. He hung up. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the intercom crackled. Garrett? Her voice was hoarse, like she had been crying. What are you doing here? I need to talk to you, please. Is Ren okay? Ren is fine. She is with my neighbor. Please, Celine, let me in. Silence. Then the door buzzed open. She was waiting in the doorway of her apartment when he reached the third floor. She looked terrible and beautiful. Both at once, her eyes were red and swollen. Her hair was tangled. She was wearing old sweatpants and no prosthetic, balancing on one leg with her hand against the doorframe. You should not be here, she said. I should not be anywhere else. Garrett stepped into her apartment without being invited. He was dripping rainwater all over her floor. You are soaked, she said. You will catch cold. I do not care about the cold. I care about you. I care about why you are hiding from me. I am not hiding. Then what do you call the last 4 weeks? Celine looked away. She hopped to her couch and sat down heavily. I am giving you space, you and Ren. You have a lot to figure out with Cordelia coming back. Is that what you think this is? Garrett sat down on the coffee table facing her, close enough to touch. You think you are being noble. You think you are stepping aside so Ren can have her fairy tale ending. Celine's eyes filled with tears. She told me, Garrett said softly, about the prayers, about wanting us to be a real family. She should have that, Celine whispered. She deserves that. Both her parents under one roof. And what about what you deserve? I have already lost my family. Celine's voice cracked. How can I take away Ren's chance at having hers? You are not taking anything away. Garrett reached for her hands. She tried to pull back, but he held on. Celine, listen to me. Really listen. She met his eyes. Tears were streaming down her cheeks. Cordelia and I are not getting back together. We are not in love. We have not been in love for years. Living in the same city does not change that. But she wants to try. She mentioned it as a possibility, and I have not seriously considered it for a single second. But Ren is 6 years old. She has fantasies about fairy tales where everyone lives happily ever after in the same castle. But that is not reality. Garrett's grip on her hands tightened. Cordelia and I can both be excellent parents without being married. Ren will understand that as she gets older. But I will not lie to her by pretending to love someone I do not love. Celine was shaking. Garrett, I am not finished. He took a breath. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it. These past 4 months have been some of the happiest of my life since my divorce. Not because of convenience, not because of circumstance, because of you. Celine's breath caught. Because you make me laugh in ways I forgot I could. Because you see the world through this lens that fascinates me. Because you are kind and resilient and real and beautiful. Because when I am with you, everything feels right. In a way, it never felt with Cordelia. Tears were streaming down both their faces now. You are not standing in the way of anything, Celine. You are not an obstacle to my family. He cupped her face in his hands. You are. Before you are my family. You have been since that day you asked to share our table. Ren loves you, and I. His voice broke. I love you. I am in love with you. I have been for weeks, maybe months. And I hope, you might feel the same way. Celine stared at him. I do, she whispered. I have been falling in love with you since you sang happy birthday to a stranger and made her feel seen. Then why are you running away? Because I am scared, Garrett. Because I am broken. Because I lost everyone I ever loved, and I am terrified of losing you too. Because I do not know how to be someone worth keeping. Garrett kissed her. It was soft and gentle and full of everything he had been too afraid to say. When they pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. You are worth keeping, he said firmly. You are worth everything, and we will figure all of this out together. Cordelia, the custody arrangements, Ren's feelings, all of it. He pulled back to look at her. But please do not run away from us. Do not leave us. We need you. Celine's hands clutched his shirt like a lifeline. I will not, she promised through her tears. I am so sorry I tried. You do not have to apologize. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips again. You being in our lives is what is right. You are exactly where you belong. They held each other for a long time. The Portland rain drummed against the windows. Thunder rolled in the distance. But inside the small apartment, everything was warm and quiet and finally right. The rain stopped sometime before dawn. Celine woke to sunlight streaming through her window and the unfamiliar warmth of hope in her chest. For the first time in 2 years, she had not dreamed of fire and falling concrete. She had dreamed of Saturday mornings, of hot chocolate and laughter, of a future she was finally brave enough to want. Her phone buzzed, a text from Garrett. Can I come over this morning? I need to talk to Ren first, about us. Then I want you there when I tell her. Celine typed back with trembling fingers. I will be ready. She was terrified, but she was done running. That morning, Garrett sat down with his daughter. Ren was at the kitchen table eating cereal with the focused intensity of a 6-year-old who had not yet fully woken up. Her auburn hair was tangled from sleep. Her pajamas had dinosaurs on them. She looked so small, so innocent, so completely unaware that her world was about to shift. Sweetheart, Garrett said, pulling out the chair across from her. I need to talk to you about something important. Ren looked up from her cereal. Her spoon paused halfway to her mouth. Am I in trouble? No, baby, you are not in trouble. Then why do you have your serious face? Garrett almost smiled. His daughter noticed everything. Because this is a serious conversation. About Mommy and about Miss Celine. Ren set down her spoon. Her small face became attentive. Is Mommy still moving here? Yes, Mommy is still moving to Portland. She will be here next month. And you are going to see her much more often, every other weekend. Wednesday dinners, maybe more. Ren's eyes lit up. That is so great. It is great. Mommy loves you so much and she wants to be closer to you. Garrett paused. This was the hard part. But sweetheart, I need to tell you something else. Mommy and Daddy are not getting back together. The light in Ren's eyes flickered. But you said I know what you want, baby. I know you pray about it. And I understand why. Garrett reached across the table and took his daughter's small hands in his. But sometimes the people we love want different things. Mommy and Daddy tried very hard to be married. We really did. But we were not happy together, not the way married people should be. We made each other sad more than we made each other happy. But if Mommy is here, being in the same city does not change how we feel. Mommy and I are better as friends, as parents who both love you, but not as husband and wife. Ren's lower lip trembled. But I want us all to be together, like a real family. We are a real family, Garrett said firmly. Just a different kind. You have Mommy who loves you. You have Daddy who loves you. We are both here for you. That is what matters. Not whether we live in the same house. Ren was quiet for a long moment, processing. Is it because of Miss Celine? Garrett took a breath. No, Mommy and I made our decision to divorce long before I met Miss Celine. That has nothing to do with her. He paused. But there is something I need to tell you about Miss Celine. Ren looked at him with those big, honest eyes. I love her, Garrett said. Not just as a friend, the way grown-ups love each other when they want to be together, the way Mommy and I used to love each other a long time ago. Ren was silent. Garrett felt his heart pounding. This was the moment he had been dreading. The moment his daughter might reject Celine. Like boyfriend and girlfriend, Ren finally asked. Yes, exactly like that. More silence. Then Ren said something that broke Garrett's heart and healed it at the same time. I like Miss Celine. She is really nice. And you smile a lot when she is around. You laugh more. You seem happy. Garrett felt tears prick his eyes. I am happy when she is around. Ren nodded slowly, her 6-year-old mind working through complicated emotions. I still wish you and Mommy could be together, she said honestly. I will probably always wish that a little bit. I understand, sweetheart. But I guess if you are happy with Miss Celine, that is okay too. She looked up at her father. Can she still come to Saturday coffee with us? Always, Garrett said, his voice thick. Always, sweetheart. Good, because she is my friend, and friends come to Saturday coffee. That is the rule. Garrett pulled his daughter into his arms and held her tight. Thank you for understanding, baby girl. Ren hugged him back. Daddy, yeah, does this mean Miss Celine is going to be my stepmom someday? Garrett laughed through his tears. Maybe. Would that be okay? Ren thought about it. Only if she keeps bringing me hot chocolate with extra whipped cream. I think that can be arranged. 6 weeks later, Cordelia moved back to Portland. She arrived on a Saturday morning in September, driving a rental truck packed with her Seattle life. The first time Cordelia came to pick up Ren from Garrett's apartment, she met Celine. Celine had been terrified. She had spent all day imagining the worst. Cordelia would hate her. Cordelia would see her as a threat. Cordelia would make things difficult for everyone. She had changed outfits 3 times, fixed her hair 4 times, almost canceled twice. But when the moment finally came, it was nothing like she expected. Cordelia was tall and artistic with paint-stained fingers and expressive eyes. She looked exactly like the kind of woman who would create beautiful art and break conventional rules. She stood in the doorway taking in the scene, Garrett in the kitchen, Ren bouncing excitedly, and Celine standing awkwardly by the couch trying to look like she belonged there. So Cordelia said, "You are Celine." "I am," Celine said quietly. Her heart was racing. "I want you to know that I am not trying to replace you. You are Ren's mother. I would never." But Cordelia held up a hand. "I know," she said. And to Celine's complete surprise, she smiled. It was not a forced smile, not a polite smile, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Ren talks about you constantly. Miss Celine taught me this. Miss Celine said that. Miss Celine is the best at drawing butterflies." Cordelia's smile softened. "I can tell she loves you, and I can see that you make Garrett happy in ways I never could." Celine did not know what to say. I thought I wanted to try again with him. Cordelia continued. When I got the job offer, when I knew I was moving back, I thought maybe we could make it work this time. She shook her head. But the truth is, I was lonely. And I confused wanting to be a better mother with wanting to be his wife again. Those are two different things. She looked back at Celine. I am actually glad he found you. Celine felt tears spring to her eyes. Thank you, she managed. That means more than you know. Cordelia nodded. Take care of them. Both of them. They are pretty special. I will. I absolutely will. Then Ren came bursting out of her room with an overnight bag. Mommy, I am ready. Can we get ice cream? And just like that, the tension dissolved. The months that followed were not always easy. There were adjustments, growing pains, moments of confusion and conflict. Ren sometimes got upset when schedules changed, when she had to leave Daddy's house for Mommy's house. Cordelia and Garrett had disagreements about parenting styles, about bedtimes and screen time and how much sugar was too much sugar. And Celine had to find her place in a family structure that was still forming. She was not Ren's mother. She was not trying to be. But she was not just a friend anymore either. She was something in between. Something new. But they figured it out, one day at a time, one conversation at a time, one small act of grace at a time. Cordelia started bringing her new girlfriend, Margot, to family events. Margot was an art restorer she had met at the museum, quiet and thoughtful and clearly devoted to Cordelia. Ren accepted her without question. In the mind of a 6-year-old, more people who loved her was simply more people who loved her. The configurations did not matter, and slowly something remarkable happened. They became a family, not a traditional family, not the kind you see in picture frames at department stores, but a family nonetheless, a family built on choice rather than obligation, on love rather than duty, on the radical idea that people could care for each other across the broken lines of divorce and loss. 8 months after that first Saturday at the corner bean, everything changed again. It was November. The leaves had turned and fallen. The Portland rain had returned. The world was settling into the quiet gray of approaching winter. Celine arrived at the cafe early as she always did now. She ordered coffees and hot chocolate as she always did now. She sat at their usual table number 7, and waited. She did not know that this Saturday would be different from all the others. When Garrett and Ren walked through the door, Celine noticed something immediately. Ren was wearing her best dress, the green one she had picked out herself for special occasions. Her auburn hair was brushed and neat, and she was carrying something, a small velvet box. Celine's heart stopped. Good morning, Garrett said. His voice was casual, but his eyes were bright with something she could not quite name. Good morning, she looked at Ren. You look very fancy today. Ren giggled, but said nothing. She was vibrating with barely contained excitement. Garrett sat down across from Celine. He took her hands in his. I have been thinking, he said, about how we met. About that day you walked into this cafe looking for a place to belong. About how I saw you standing there so lost and so brave, and something in my heart just knew. Celine's eyes were filling with tears. You asked if you could share our table. 5 words. That is all it took to change my life. His voice wavered. You brought light back into our world, Celine. You taught me what real partnership looks like. You have been patient with Ren, gracious with Cordelia. You have become the missing piece I did not know we needed. He squeezed her hands. I love you. Ren loves you. And we do not want to imagine our lives without you. He stood up. And then right there in the corner bean cafe, surrounded by strangers drinking their Saturday morning coffee, Garrett Shaw got down on one knee. Ren stepped forward, holding the velvet box open with trembling hands. Inside, a ring caught the light. Simple, elegant, a small diamond that sparkled like a promise. The cafe had gone quiet. People were watching. Someone pulled out their phone to record. Celine Walsh Garrett said, his voice steady despite the tears in his eyes. Will you marry us? Will you officially become part of our family? Celine could not breathe. She looked at Garrett kneeling before her, at Ren holding the ring with such careful importance, at the table where they had shared so many Saturday mornings. She thought about her father, her mother, Ivy. She thought about all the times she had wished she could join them, all the nights she had wondered why she survived when they did not. And she thought about what her mother would say if she could see this moment. She would say, yes, baby. She would say, grab that happiness with both hands and never let go. Yes, Celine whispered. Then louder so everyone could hear. Yes, absolutely yes. The cafe erupted. Applause broke out from every corner. Someone started singing just like they had 8 months ago on her birthday. By the time they reached the chorus, half the cafe had joined in. Happy wedding day to you. Happy wedding day to you. Garrett slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her. Wren threw her arms around both of them, squeezing with all the strength her small body possessed. We are a family now, Wren declared. A real family. For real and forever. For real and forever, Celine repeated. And she meant it with every broken, healing, hopeful piece of her heart. The wedding was held on a Saturday morning in December. Not in a church, not in a garden, not in any of the traditional places where people promise forever. They got married at the Corner Bean Cafe, at table number 7, the table where it all began. The cafe owner had been thrilled when Garrett asked. He closed the space for the morning, transforming it with simple white flowers and strings of soft lights. The mismatched chairs became ceremony seating. The worn wooden floors became an aisle. It was small, intimate, perfect. Wren was the flower girl wearing the green dress she loved, with new white shoes she had picked out herself. She walked down the aisle with exaggerated solemnity, dropping rose petals with the precision of someone who understood the importance of her role. She had announced to everyone who would listen that she knew they were in love for forever, and she was very glad they finally figured it out. Cordelia came with Margot. They sat in the front row, holding hands. When Celine walked down the aisle, Cordelia caught her eye and nodded. A blessing, an acceptance, a bridge built across what could have been division. Garrett's teacher friends were there. Drew and Michelle, who had helped Celine move. Celine's aunt had driven down from Vancouver. She sat in the front row on the bride's side, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. And in the corner near the window, there were 4 empty chairs. 4 chairs with small bouquets of flowers on them. Franklin, Diane, Ivy, and one more. For everyone they had lost, everyone they carried with them. The ceremony was simple. A friend of Garrett's officiated. He talked about love and loss and second chances, about the courage it takes to open your heart after it has been broken, about the family we are born into and the family we choose. Then it was time for the vows. Garrett went first, Celine he said, holding both her hands. When you asked if you could share our table, you gave me more than company for coffee. You gave me hope. His voice was steady but full of emotion. You taught me that families are not just born, they are built, one kind moment at a time, one Saturday morning at a time, one choice to love at a time. He squeezed her hands. You showed Wren what resilience looks like. You showed me what partnership should feel like. You became the heart of our home without even trying. I promise to always make room at our table for you, to celebrate every birthday like it is the most important day of the year, to remind you every single day that you are exactly where you belong. He smiled through his tears. I love you, Celine Walsh, today and every day, for real and forever. Then it was Celine's turn. She had written her vows 100 times, crossed out words, added others, tried to capture everything she felt in sentences that would never be enough. But standing there looking at Garrett, she forgot all of it. She spoke from the heart instead. I came to this cafe on the worst birthday of my life, she said. Her voice trembled, but did not break. I was looking for ghosts. I was trying to find some trace of my family in a place where we had been happy. She took a breath. I expected to feel sad. I expected to cry. I expected to sit alone with my memories and then go back to my empty apartment and wonder why I was still alive when they were not. The cafe was silent. Every eye was on her. Instead, I found you. She looked at Garrett, at Wren standing beside him with her basket of flower petals. You did not just give me a seat at your table. You gave me a place in your hearts. You taught me that grief and joy can exist together. That broken does not mean worthless. That family is not about blood. It is about choice. It is about showing up. It is about making room. Tears were streaming down her face now. I will miss them every day. I will carry them with me always. She glanced at the 4 empty chairs by the window. But I also know what I found. I found you. I found Wren. I found a future I never thought I would have. She smiled through her tears. I promise to love you both with everything I am, to honor the family you have welcomed me into, to never forget that the best things in life can start with the simplest question. Can I share this table? Her voice broke on the last words. Thank you for saying yes. When it was time to exchange rings, Ren stepped forward with great importance. She had been entrusted with both rings. She had taken this responsibility extremely seriously, checking her pockets approximately every 30 seconds for the past hour. She handed the rings to the officiant with the solemnity of a knight presenting a sword to a king. Good job, sweetheart, Garrett whispered. I know, Ren whispered back. I practiced. The cafe laughed softly. They exchanged rings. They said, I do. And then the officiant said the words that made it official. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Garrett kissed Celine. The cafe erupted in cheers. Ren jumped up and down, clapping her hands. They did it, they did it, they are married now. Someone popped a champagne bottle. The cafe owner brought out cake. Hot chocolate appeared for Ren with extra whipped cream. They cut the cake at table number 7. Chocolate with vanilla buttercream frosting. The same kind of cake they had shared on that first birthday. To the family that started at table 7, someone shouted, raising a glass. To table 7, everyone echoed. Later, after the cake was eaten and the guests had started to drift away, Celine found a quiet moment. She walked over to the 4 empty chairs by the window. She sat down in front of them, and she talked to her family. I got married today, she said softly, to the man I told you about, Garrett, and his daughter Ren. You would love them, both of them. She touched the flowers on the chairs. I wish you could have been here. I wish you could have seen this. I wish you could have met them. Tears slipped down her cheeks. But I think maybe you did see it. I think maybe you have been watching all along, helping me find my way, sending me to that cafe on my birthday, making sure there was one kind person who would wave me over to his table. She smiled through her tears. I still miss you. I will always miss you. You will always be my family. She touched Ivy's chair. But I have more family now. And I think that is what you would want. I think you would want me to be happy, to be loved, to live. She stood up. So that is what I am going to do. I am going to live. For all of us. She kissed her fingers and pressed them to each chair. I love you, Daddy. I love you, Mama. I love you, Ivy. Forever and always. As the afternoon light slanted through the windows, Cordelia found herself standing next to Ren. The little girl was watching her father and her new stepmother dance in the narrow space between tables. They were swaying to music from someone's phone, looking at each other like no one else existed. Mommy Ren said quietly, Yes, sweetheart. Do you know what I learned? What did you learn? Ren was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that made Cordelia's heart stop. I learned that sometimes fairy tales are real. They just do not look like the ones in books. Cordelia looked at her daughter. What do you mean, baby? I mean, in books, the princess always ends up with the prince. And there is only one prince, and one princess, and one castle. Ren watched Celine laugh at something Garrett said. But real life is different. In real life, there can be lots of princes, and lots of princesses, and lots of castles, and everyone can be happy in different ways. She looked up at her mother. Like us, I have Daddy and Miss Celine in one castle, and I have you and Miss Margot in another castle, and I love both castles, and everyone loves me. She smiled. That is a better fairy tale than the books, because it is real. Cordelia knelt down and pulled her daughter into her arms. When did you get so smart? I do not know. Maybe I was born this way. Cordelia laughed and cried at the same time. Maybe you were, sweetheart. Maybe you were. That night, after everyone had gone home and Ren was asleep in her bed, Garrett and Celine sat together on the couch. The apartment was quiet. The December wind whispered against the windows. The city lights glowed in the distance. We are married, Celine said. It still felt surreal. We are married, Garrett confirmed. Mrs. Shaw, Celine Walsh Shaw, she corrected gently. I am keeping my name too. Walsh is all I have left of them. Garrett nodded. I understand. Celine Walsh Shaw, I love it. He pulled her close. How do you feel? Celine thought about the question. Grateful, she said finally. Terrified. Happy. Sad. She leaned into him. I feel everything all at once, like my heart is too full to hold it all. That sounds about right. They sat in comfortable silence. Ren called me mom tonight, Celine said quietly. Garrett turned to look at her. She did? She asked if it was okay, if she could have two mommies like some of her friends. And what did you say? I said yes. Celine's voice trembled. Was that okay? I should have asked you first. Garrett kissed her. That was perfect, he said. You are perfect. I am not perfect. You are perfect for us. He held her tighter. This is what I wanted, you know, from the moment I saw you standing in that cafe looking so lost and so brave. I wanted this. I wanted you to be part of our family. You could not have known that, Celine said. No, but I hoped. And sometimes that is enough. Outside, the December wind carried the sounds of the city, traffic and voices and the distant rumble of trains. But inside the apartment, there was only warmth. Celine looked at the photographs on the mantel. New ones mixed with old ones. Her family and Garrett's family and the family they were building together. Franklin and Diane and Ivy smiled from a frame next to a photo of Celine and Garrett and Ren at the waterfront. Past and present, loss and love, grief and joy. All of it true, all of it real, all of it hers. And somewhere in whatever place souls go when they leave this world, a firefighter and a nurse and a girl who loved animals watched over them. Proud, happy, at peace. The next Saturday morning they went to the Corner Bean. All three of them, like always. Celine ordered coffee. Garrett ordered black coffee. Ren ordered hot chocolate with extra whipped cream. They sat at table number 7, their table, the table where everything began. Outside Portland was slowly waking up. The December sun was struggling through the clouds, but inside the cafe it was warm. It was ordinary, unremarkable, just another Saturday morning. And that was exactly what made it perfect. Can I tell you guys something, Celine said. Ren looked up from her hot chocolate. What I love you, both of you, so much it scares me sometimes. Garrett reached across the table and took her hand. We love you too. We love you more, Ren added. Like so much more. Like infinity more, Celine laughed. That is a lot of love, I know, because you deserve it. They finished their coffee. They paid their bill. They walked out into the December morning together, hand in hand in hand. A family. Not the family Celine was born into. Not the family Garrett had once tried to build with someone else. Something new. Something chosen. Made of Saturday mornings and birthday songs and the simple courage to make room for one more. 5 words had started it all. Can I share this table? And the answer then and now and forever was yes. Always yes.